Hello. To make a phone stand, you will need a piece of paper or this printed template, a piece of cardboard bigger than this piece of paper, or two pieces of cardboard bigger than the two halves of paper. This is going to get cut in half. So we'll have two pieces to our phone stand. And I'll demonstrate using, so I have a short Amazon box here, and that half I can use for that side, and this half I can use for this side. Okay. So I'll demonstrate using, if you're going to use pizza boxes, by the way, make sure you have a side that's not greasy. Don't use a greasy piece or you might get critters. Okay. So I'm going to take this box apart just to make it easier. And the tape is light enough on these that you can actually just pull it apart by hand. But since I had that handy, I'm using that. Also, inside boxes, there's usually a seam where it's glued. I'm just going to peel that apart. And I just need two pieces. So you can either cut it if you have scissors. I'll be going back and forth between the scissors and the canary cutter. Or you can use the canary cutter to cut it apart. Okay, so again, I'll be using these two pieces instead of one solid piece. Okay, so if you don't have a printer to print the template out, I'm going to show you how to fold your paper to use that. So you take your paper and you're going to fold it long ways. This can be a piece of scrap paper. Try to line up the corners as best as possible. Put a nice crease in there. I usually carefully fold it the other way to make that a nice strong crease. And I'm going to use the corner here because I have two nice corners to work off of. So I'm working smart instead of hard, okay? Work smart, not hard. So I'm going to use this as the outline for my two pieces. Okay. And if you had one solid box, like the pizza box, I'll show you what to do there. So we're going to have these two pieces, or there are lines going in this direction. And if you can follow those lines, it's better to do that long ways. This box, I don't have the luxury of that. The lines are going this way instead of this way. It's stronger if you can line up the paper along with those lines. And there's a little bit of a bend here, so I'm going to go to the side of that. And I'm going to make sure that, I'm going to try to line it up as best as possible, but it's really not crucial either way. Now, you can do this with the paper, but I'm going to use the paper and a ruler to help keep my lines straighter. So all I'm doing is tracing around the outside of the paper. And I'm holding my paper like in place as I move the ruler around so that the paper doesn't move. If the paper moves, it's not going to be the right size. It's going to be off a little bit. So that's the outside, and then I want to draw that center line. I'll line that up as best as possible. And draw that center line there. Okay. So again, either 2 pieces or 1 piece that will cut apart. Okay. The next step is to finish making your template. Now, if you printed out the template, you could do what we just did by folding in half. Okay. So either or. Okay. Now we're going to finish making what we have over there. Now, if you notice, we have a crease line here and we have a crease line here. Dash means fold. So we have to fold this in half this way. Okay. But we also have to fold it in half the other way. Now, when I'm folding this, I want to make sure that this doesn't like open up and become like uneven. Okay, I want those 2 ends to stay there. So it's helpful to fold it this way, and that'll keep them together as best you can. Okay, so after you fold it in half both ways, and again that way, you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rectangles. Okay, I'll put it on the side with no writing. And this is going to be a crease, and this is going to be a crease. So you put a dashed line on this fold. And I'm just going to use this ruler to help make a nice straight edge. And you want a dashed line on the other half as well, going the opposite direction. Okay. So one of your pieces of cardboard is going to fold like this, and the other piece of cardboard is going to fold like this. So on our cardboard, we're now going to draw those creases. Okay. So halfway up, make sure I line it up on all sides. That's going to be a fold. And then I'm going to undo that and fold it back down here so I get this dashed line going down the center. Now, we're going to cut these 2 apart and all the way around. So let's go all the way around first. So if you have a canary cutter, you can cut along a ruler. The way you do that is you just keep gently pulling until you cut all the way through. Or this is how we're going to score it so we can bend it on a hinge. Now, you can keep going because we're going to cut this off. This is the hinge, but it's nice to practice and get a feel for how far you have to cut just to score it. You can also completely cut this off using the score. I'm going to take this end off here. If you've got a canary cutter, you fold this flat back and you put it inside here and kind of very carefully work it through, moving it back and forth. And that will make that nice edge, okay? If you have scissors, one side is going to bend, the side where your hand is. You want that to be the side that you're not going to use because you don't want to bend this, okay? So I'm going to take this off to get it out of the way. And see how I can, I just bent this off the table so I can get my hand in there. And that's if you don't have a canary cutter. Kitchen shears are stronger than most regular scissors. This would be hard to cut with, like, you know, the safety school scissors. I'm going to show you if you have a canary cutter. We're going to score this, okay? But if you keep going, you'll cut through it. So we're going to score it here and here. So it's good to practice scoring before you actually have to score, because the pressure that you apply and how many swipes depends on the cardboard that you have, okay? Some cardboard you go through much quicker, also depending on how hard you press. Okay, so we've got these two pieces, and we're going to keep those two pieces like that. Now this is going to fold, but it's still going to be remaining connected, hopefully. If you have scissors, okay, mine come apart, but most people's won't. So you can actually, in order to score this, you can go like this. If you find this too difficult, you can cut this apart and then tape it to hinge it back together. Okay, so that's scoring it, and I'm folding it in half. So I've got two layers essentially. Okay, so that's going to stay like that. If you can't score it, you can go ahead and cut it apart and then tape it back together like this. And then this one is going to actually act as a hinge. So this needs to remain a hinge. Now, if you can't score it, I'm going to use the canary cutter for this one. Again, if you can't score it, then you can cut it apart and tape it back together as a hinge. I'm going to see if this pops open or not. You don't want to be too strong with it, because if the one layer isn't cut, you'll bend the cardboard. But it looks like I did cut through my one layer, which is what I want. And so the back layer is still intact, and then this will act as a hinge like that. Now, if you cut it in two pieces, you just put tape here, and you want to tape it when it's hinged. If you tape it like this, you won't be able to fold it back down, okay? So I've got that hinge and this piece here, which you can glue this together if you want, or keep it as a hinge when you take it apart. Now we have to add the slots. The slots are trickier. If you have the template, not as difficult. You can use like a pin, okay, to poke, like a push pin, to poke through each corner to mark your cardboard. Or I actually feel like this might be easier, even though it's a little trickier. So what we're going to do is we need to go a quarter up from the bottom here. Okay, not a quarter of this whole page, but a quarter of this side. Okay, so I want this slot to fall somewhere right there. So half of that, and then half of that is a quarter. Now the way you can measure it if you want, or you can use this half of the paper. And what I'll do is I'll fold it in half again and then in half one more time, and that'll give me a quarter of that piece. So it was, let me open it back up. So it was folded right there. So that was 1. And then 2, it's thick, so it's a little difficult. And then 3. Now you want to line this up as best as possible because you want this line that you draw on here to be level with the bottom piece, okay? So I'm going to line that up there. And a trick is, oh, also, if you don't want your lines to be on the outside, you can do it on the back, so we won't see these. Okay, so I'm going to line it up there, and if for some reason I folded this unevenly, a way to prevent a problem is I take this and I flip it, and that way I'll see. Okay, so my lines are a little crooked, so I'll basically cut between the two, okay? And then that'll be centered. So there's one, and then I have to draw one on this end also. So, and when I say one, I'll draw it this way, and then I'll flip it, and I'll draw it the other way too. So I'm lining this up on the bottom, drawing my line, and now I'm gonna flip it, lining it up on the bottom, and drawing my line. So they're kind of crisscrossed, which totally works. Okay, now I have to know how wide to make this slide. This is going to slide through here. So this, I'm going to cut a little rectangle here. It needs to be wide enough for this to go through. So if you lay this here and center it as best as possible, not over here, but centered this way. So this side matches this side as best you can. And draw a line on both sides. Then the left side didn't get. Then I know it has to be at least this wide. Now, how thick does it need to be? Well, here is the line closest to this edge. I want to make the rectangle up here closer to the crease. And here, I want it to be on this side. So this is the bottom. Here's the crease. I want this rectangle to be closest to the crease, okay? So here and here. Now, how thick does it need to be? Well, it needs to be thick enough for this to slide through. So what I'm going to do, this is a little tricky. I'm going to line this up here like this. I definitely want to see the line on this side because I want this to be wide enough for this to go through. And I'm going to draw a line on this side. So I know that this rectangle needs to be that thick. And then over here, so that's going to get cut out, okay? Now, in order to cut this out, I'll show one side with the canary cutter and the other side with the scissors. The easiest thing to do is to start by just clicking right there with the tip of the canary cutter. And then you're going to carefully pull from this edge down. So we'll do on that side and we'll do on this side, and then we'll flip and we'll go here. So we're carefully cutting through little by little. Okay? And you just keep going and going until you get through to the other side. So I'm going to do a couple here, spin it around. Going to do a couple here. And I want to see it's going through, okay? So now this right here, I'm actually going to start here. I'm going to just gently go through like that. Okay, if you push through, this is much wider than your rectangle is. So you'll make a longer cut than you need to. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on this end. I'm just gently, I'm pulling the cardboard back towards the canary cutter, and I'm pushing the canary cutter just a little bit. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this because it looks like it's tearing here. Like that. Okay. Now, if you cut through and you need to add tape anywhere, then you can do that. But that's with a canary cutter. And then if you have a scissors, what I do is I'll start on this corner, and I'm basically going to make a hole. And I'm going to keep turning until I reach this edge. Okay. If you make it a little bigger, it's not going to hurt anything. If you make it too small, that's not going to fit through. See, this is going to slide through there. So it has to be at least big enough to go through. And I'm going to start on this side. And this is a situation of slow and steady wins the race. Definitely don't want your hand on this side because you don't want the scissors going into your hand. I'm going to just gently keep turning it till I get a hole. Okay. Now you can score this side and this side to help when you get your scissors in there. But essentially what you want to do is you want to carefully work your scissors in there, and you'll cut that edge and you'll work your way over to this edge. And let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. So again, you get your scissors in there and you just carefully, start chipping away till you can get to that edge. And then you try to clean it up as best as possible. You might have to cut a little bit more off to fit the stand through the slot. Okay, so let's check. So I'm going to try to slide this through, but I don't want to force it so that it bends. Perfect. That's perfect, like that. Oh, let me zoom back out. Okay, so looks like this. We're going to slide this in here, and then we're going to slide it through the other side. So it's snug enough so that I can adjust it, but it's open enough so that it slides through with ease. Now, how does this work? Well, if you have a phone, which I can't seem to find right now, so I'm going to use this, which is kind of the size of a phone. You can set it here, horizontally or vertically. And you can make this lay more flat or more vertical, okay? If you want to trim some of this, you can trim some of it, but this also, if you open it back up, can travel along with you. That's it.